In my 42 years of being disabled, I have never felt as disabled as I have done since the implementation of LTNs. The recommendations placed before you this evening are ones that cause me particular concern, both in content and time. I know you have also seen a video of many disabled residents outlining how difficult their lives have become, sharing their concerns, which must not be ignored. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the consultation process, but to date, here are a few of the headlines. We were advised by Islington Council that there would be a disabled focus group set up in June. This group didn't happen. We are still waiting. There are 9,000 blue badge holders in Islington. They appear to have not been consulted. And what about their carers, the therapists, the parents? They don't even register. And we are aware of emails of disabled people to PFS that have gone unanswered. And I know Councillor Russell mentioned that, with all his credit, that there was a huge volume. I think that's just an inevitable consequence when you do things without asking questions first. Finally, on Sunday the 10th of October, Islington Council organised a drop-in for disabled residents. However, there were no leaflets distributed to advise of this event. It wasn't even advertised on the council website. In only 3 minutes, I'm limited in telling you quite how many gaps there have been in meaningfully reaching out to disabled people, but I think this gives a flavour. You will note the recommendations put before you this evening remain unaltered, despite the feedback from Sunday's consultation, where there was an overwhelming demonstration just how difficult life is for residents and how problematic these proposals are. Roaming champion talks have devastating effects, and I'm glad that that has been recognised, because there are devastating effects. The LTN exemptions proposed are not fit for purpose. 42% of disabled people who travel as a passenger will potentially be ineligible for exemption. People reliant on a taxi have no hope at all. There is a second route exemption. Most disabled people will be are under at least 2 jurisdictions, their GP, a hospital. By voting for this evening, you are asking them to prioritise which medical needs they take. Are you as councillors going to help with the rationing out of the urgency of medical appointments? Yeah. You may hear stories that LTNs work for some disabled people, and for that I'm happy. But they clearly don't work for many disabled people. And while some may be satisfied with pleasing some of the disabled some of the time, I will not be satisfied until I know that we are aiming to please all of the disabled all of the time. And how can we do that with consultation that is so seemingly incomplete and midway through? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Councillor Clapham, would you like to start?
Thank you. I completely understand why you feel the way you do. We have spoken to, in respect of this, there will be some people with disabilities who aren't going to be included in this. But we have been speaking and have heard from an awful lot of people who have got different range of disabilities over the year. And that has gone and fed into the proposals we're making today. And we will continue to talk to people, and we will continue to engage with the groups who represent people with disabilities as we go forward. Right. And as I say, we do have quite a job of work, as Councillor Russell pointed out, with the category on the special dispensation, extraordinary based dispensation. And I look forward to hearing more from people as that goes forward as well.
Thank you, Councillor Champion. We will now take we will now take questions from the members of the public. I'm going to allow 15 minutes for questions. I believe the lady in front of me is going to take the first question. Will someone please assist her with the mic?
Thank you. Now, it's my second time appearing before this chamber. And the first time I was speaking to the Lib Dems regarding a protest that I had regarding residential caretakers. and I never ever thought I'd be speaking to Labour councillors who I'd always voted for about how they're discriminating against me now. I can only echo what Andrew said. I've never felt so disabled in my life in the last 2 years about what you've done. You've mentioned about rolling out people-friendly pavements. This is something I spoke with Janet Burgess and Trish Clark about over 15 years ago, and it was stuff that's still not been implemented. You've had the money, you've got the money for the LTNs. Use it for those instead of putting the LTNs in. There's disabled people like me who don't necessarily have access to a blue badge, as mentioned by Andrew. There's people who could go out and party with Troy last night, who was at Flynn's celebrating with other members of the Irish community, but they can't because they've not got a blue badge. They can't get through the LTNs, they can't get taxis to take them to and through places. It is absolutely ridiculous what you put in place. I've never felt so disabled. I've also emailed every single one of you councillors a thing about my feedback on the consultation, because it's not been recognised. I've already emailed Rowena during the last year, and also Emily Thornbury has asked her to respond to me. She has still failed to respond to my comments. There's the 812 bus, which was used by all the disabled people and the elderly. That can no longer work. I'm just so angry about stuff. Read my email, it's there for you to see.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell, would you like to respond?
I agree we need to do more about pavements. I really do agree, and I think over the years, perhaps it is an area that hasn't had the focus that it needs to have. It is, as you know, again, it's a big task, but we are very committed to undertaking it. I'm very sorry that you feel that way.
It's too late.
Disgraceful.
I can't go back 15 years, but as I say, we are very committed to it, and we do understand the impact it has on people who have mobility issues or other issues as well. So we are taking that forward. In relation to the points you make about the number of people who perhaps need to drive through the area, low traffic neighbourhood, you know, are designed so that every property is accessible. And I think the categories of people that you've talked about, the difficulty we have is that we know that if you are going to encourage people to walk, to cycle, to move around their area differently, that the amount of traffic that goes through those streets has to be low. And the more vulnerable you are, the lower it has to be. So I absolutely, I'm sorry that you feel that way, I really do. But if we didn't do something, we see increasing amounts of traffic hitting our streets. 24.3 million more miles in Islington alone, densest borough in the country, in 2019 than 2013. 24.3 million more miles. And if we are saying to people who are coming into the borough to do business in particular ways, actually you can drive where you want to, it's going to increase. That graph was just going up. There was no tailing off. And absolutely, and I am sorry, and I'm sorry that you feel it's not the right way of doing it, but equally allowing mounting amounts of traffic onto both our local streets and our main roads is going to benefit anyone.
Thank you, Councillor Shankly.
Hello, I think we've spoken before, Rowena. I'm here basically to speak about my child, in particular, who is disabled, and the amount of education that has been affected because of road closures. My son has an EHCP in place. He has neurological disability and physical disability. He has missed school trips, sporting trips because of it. He's also missed an extreme amount of extra time than he would because of medical appointments. What a medical appointment that would normally take us half an hour by car is now taking us an extreme amount of longer time because of it. I appreciate that you're offering an exemption for LTNs, but they're going to only, from what my understanding is, they're only going to be a local, not within my ward. My son's appointments aren't all within my local ward, they're spread around the borough and even out of the borough. Because of his neurological condition, he can't sit in a car and in traffic. It causes him distress. It's causing him a severe amount of distress. And also in terms of education, if I can just give you an example, at the end of the last academic year, as a direct result of the LTN that was placed in St Peter's ward, he missed 3 full days of schooling. Now for a child with an EHCP in place to miss 3 full days of schooling is an extreme amount. While I appreciate you're all looking for solutions for how we can assist blue badge holders, maybe that should have been considered before they were put in place, because we're now living with the consequences of while everyone is scratching their heads trying to find ways and how they're going to look at ways in which you can help us or sort these tricky situations. My son is directly being affected. I'm sure there are lots of other disabled children and people who are directly being affected. I completely understand why this scheme, needs to be, you can see a reason for lowering traffic and pollution. However, my son's education is being affected, his medical well-being is being affected. When are we going to get our answers? Because the longer it takes to put these exemptions in place, the longer my son is missing out.
But then you can drive through those filters with your son, and that's automatic. If you have a car registered to it. If not, and we know that, for example, there are many families whose children go to school who are severely disabled and who go to school in a low traffic neighbourhood, but who don't live in that low traffic neighbourhood, and that's precisely what we're trying to look at. And I completely understand why you're saying this to me. Why on earth didn't you do that before? I think all I can say is that things were brought in very quickly. It was designed in a way that every property was accessible. But we did do our residence impact assessment, and we knew at that point that there were some people who were going to be disadvantaged. The balance at that stage was to go as it was, but we have been talking to people and we have been looking at what we can do. And I know that people don't think this is perfect. I absolutely understand that. But I can assure you, we are going to look at situations like your son, and we will try to make it easier for you. And I completely appreciate that many people have very difficult lives, and just an additional burden sometimes can seem a burden too much, and I do understand that, and I'm sorry for that.
It feels like our children and our disabled people are being collateral damage then in the meantime. It feels like we're taking the full brunt of it while you're getting these things in place. My child is missing education as we speak. People can't get to visit their families, their respites, as we speak now. How long is my son going to have to suffer? How long are our children, our disabled people, going to have to suffer? Thank you.
I think we have 2 more questions. We have 2 more questions.
Hi, I'm speaking on behalf of the 290 businesses who lodged objections to the council back in June. You say that you engage, you say that you reply to emails. Well, I have sent numerous emails to individual councillors on their behalf. Nobody ever replies. Nobody is offering any help or support. We also made a video where the businesses all expressed the problems that they were having. It was sent to the council. It went completely ignored. No one acknowledged it. Nothing is being done to help the businesses. A few people have popped in and offered cargo bikes here and there, which are not an option. And I just would like to ask the council, what are your plans to help these businesses? A lot of them are really suffering with genuine issues. And going forward, what are your plans to help them? Because businesses are dying around Highbury. They're really suffering, and nobody is listening.
Well, we know that businesses do have a particular business model, and I completely accept that. What we have got now in place is a dedicated officer, which my colleague over there from the Inclusive Content team, to actually work with businesses that are in low traffic neighbourhoods to try and help them. So we were coming up with a dedicated resource. We do know though that I know your points you're making, but we also do know that if you can get more people moving around the borough, that can help business. We aren't in a situation, particularly in the time of climate change, particularly in increasing amounts of traffic, where we can where business is just normal. For us, it isn't. And it is, I absolutely want to work with businesses, really want to work with business to try and make this work.
I'm being told this, they've heard nothing.
Please.
They've heard nothing. So
Please.
maybe you could send me information and
You can just allow Councillor Champion to finish her response, and then we can come back to you on specific issues. Thank you.
I think Councillor Shaker was going to...
No, I'm really sorry that you didn't get a response. I didn't get your name. Jana. And what area do you live in? Are you
Highbury, so I represent businesses that were affected by the Highbury LTNs.
Okay, so what I'll do is, if I take down the details, we'll meet up and we'll have a walk around and we'll see how it's impacted. And we'll feed that back to the team as well, and we'll see if there's any mitigating other kind of small measures that we can put in place. Councillor Champion mentioned that we are actually adding an additional resource, an officer that's going to be dedicated to work with businesses. So we are really committed. We want our businesses to be successful. They are the livelihood of our borough, and we're working very hard. We're going to be working even harder to see how we can help.
But just to say one last thing, almost a year has passed and that hasn't been done so far. So after a year, and these businesses are suffering now. They've got a problem now, so it's urgent that this is dealt with. Thank you.
Thank you. Have our final question?
I'm very small unit portals of easily chemical based. And once you introduce this LTN road, traffic neighborhood, my business down. That time they're promising they are reviewing situations, we put the petitions. So many people in our area, they start and they don't like that low traffic neighborhood, and still they pushing all this agenda. I don't understand. I lost my 30% of business now. I need car to bring my stuff from the cash and carry to run my business. And due to this low traffic neighborhood, there is so many crimes going on. Whole snatching is the daily crime around there. No one noticed that. Secondly, last month there is 3 house burglars in our neighborhood. That's no one noticed, because this is all consequences because of your low traffic neighborhood. Secondly, my daughter and my niece, they are studying. If they have to come from the university late, I told them, don't come alone, just phone me. So I need to go and collect from the Highbury station. That time of, people are driving at the evening to walking past. I don't understand why you are just making other life miserable and ruining the life and businesses. 1995, I came in this area and we feel so happy and so safe. Since last year, October, once you start this low traffic neighborhood, everything is going. No one listen about that. And councillors say they are listening, they are meeting the people. Last week, she passing from our parade, she don't bother to say anyone to ask how people are suffering there. And they just give that, we meeting the people and we give that, advice and everything. But this is all that's, propaganda. There is no reality in this matter now. So please look into it and make other people's life happy. Because secondly, they say because of the environment. How can we justify environment is improving after this low traffic neighborhood? Suncoast Road is always packed since morning to late night. So that's emission from there is not going anywhere, it's surrounding this area. So how we can justify the environment is improving in your area? I want to get, and they want to review the situation, so when they let us know they are reviewing that. Because whenever anyone we meet them, they say, oh, we are not going to change it. So they already put the agenda first. Now they're just waiting for this little bit show up, and then they start again. So many councils in London, they veto this low traffic neighborhood. So they know what the difference is between our council and that councils. So we are looking into it and do something, please.
I do know that officers have visited you, haven't you? It's kind of replaced your news agency.
Yes.
Yeah. I know at the beginning they go and speak to you. I think, again, the point really is that we do absolutely want to work with businesses. The trouble is that we can't, and as I say, we have got a dedicated resource. I know certainly officers have been to speak to you. But we can't have business as usual. Perhaps I shouldn't use that phrase, that's a really bad way of putting it. But we need to do something. And when you talk about the environment, we do know that increasing amounts of traffic, which is what's been happening over the last 10 years, has a real detrimental impact on the environment. But not only that, it stops other people walking and moving around differently. It stops people from cycling, it stops people from walking. People talk about divided communities. We know because there have been studies on this. What allows communities to come together and to walk around and come to your shops is lower traffic because people are happier being out in the streets. Yeah. You say about crime, we're monitoring it. Not only are we monitoring it, but also we looked at studies, before we put these in, we looked at studies from elsewhere, and there is absolutely no evidence that there's any increase in
Excuse me, this is a meeting that is held in public. We need to be able to hear the response from Yes, you have had the opportunity to ask the question.
I give that 24/7. I give my reality.
You're all in denial.
You have had the opportunity to express your opinion and ask your question. Please be respectful in listening to the response from the council.
I'm afraid we know that crime happens and has been happening since the beginning, and I'm very sorry it does. But as I say, we have looked at it, we do speak to the police, we track as part of the monitoring exercises, the call-outs and the contacts, and there is no evidence that there is no, I understand that there is perception, but there is no evidence that crime's impacted. But what we do know, which is really, really clear from monitoring reports, the amount of speeding, which has a massively detrimental effect on people's well-being, has gone down in those low traffic neighbourhoods by a huge amount. And when we talk about safety, I think probably I was speaking to the guy who was the police officer who was in charge of road safety for London. And I said to him, look, do you support low traffic neighbourhoods? And he said yes. He said, I think people discount road danger. And I sometimes think perhaps a little bit that's what we do. We don't think about road danger as a community safety issue, and I think we really should.
Thank you, Councillor Trumpler, and thank you everyone for this evening for your contributions. We will now take this item to a vote. Is this report agreed? Thank you very much. Excuse me.
I asked you for a meeting, I'm always very courteous with you. And I've asked you for a meeting so we can sit down and talk. And now I haven't got my opportunity to talk. You're not acceptable. There's 5 minutes.
Excuse me.
It's a fair consultation. That's what you're
Surely it's got to be a half and half in order to have a vote.
Please, if you go on, we can't hear.
fed up with your life.
I don't understand how you put all these people in. Do you, every one of you all believe in LTNs, yeah? Do you all believe it? Should it be half and half? Don't we? Should we have had? Shouldn't half your people?
Will you meet with residents?
Okay, I made it very clear at the beginning of this meeting that this is a meeting held in public. I was very clear on the amount of time I was asked the questions, and I have done that. This meeting is now concluded. Thank you.
Thank you.
What a load.
Listen to your residents in a year. Why should this meeting be any different? What's a joke?